Hey guys, welcome back. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you'll consider subscribing. On this channel, we talk about all the things that affect our lives on a regular basis. So that's going to be cooking and cleaning, parenting, relationships, product reviews, and makeup tips. I do post every Tuesday and Thursday, and it's something new every time, so you won't want to miss it. Okay, without further ado, today we are talking schooling. Schooling for our kids. Do we go to public school? Do we send them to private school? Do we homeschool? Do we do something in between? Well, if you're interested in hearing my take on that, stay tuned and let's do this. Okay, so if you don't already know, I do have 4 children and they range in age from 21 to 9. But that just means that we have experienced all sorts of different schooling options and different ways of going about it. We have tried all of them, and so I'm going to give you my take on what I think works and what I think doesn't work, and hopefully give you some insight when you are choosing what to do with your precious kids. So the first option is public school. Now, the good thing about public school is that it's free. I mean, you do pay with your tax dollars, but it is free to go there, and it's generally close to your home because you're usually zoned somewhere nearby. There's public transportation if you need the kids to take a bus. There's after school care, and then there's all sorts of government funded programs for anyone that might have some special needs. And the drawbacks to that is you have very little control as a parent over what your kids are being exposed to, what they're being taught, what other kids around them are exposing them to. It is a very scary environment, in my opinion, in this day and age, because kids are exposed to things much earlier and younger than I personally think they should have to deal with. And it can be overwhelming, it can be detrimental, there can be bullying going on. I mean, the social media aspect of schooling and public schools and all of that alone, if you look at statistics on suicide rates and depression rates, I mean, they're through the roof. And a lot of that is just this social media colliding with school environments where all these kids are put together in this melting pot. And it can be really overwhelming and a huge challenge as parents to try and navigate that with very little engagement or involvement in that process. Some kids can thrive in this and they do amazing, and other kids can't. So you kind of have to know your own child and what you are wanting for them and what they can handle, and weigh those options carefully. Option number 2 is private school. Now, that can be a private school in general, or that can be a private religious type of environment. That's up to you. And the positives of that is they're generally smaller class sizes. Generally, they're more like-minded people. They might align more with your beliefs, and therefore they are reinforcing what you are teaching at home, and can be a safer environment for your kids on a psychological level. Now, the drawbacks of these are the expense of them. Usually they're very expensive. Some of them are at or above college tuition. And so you really have to do your homework and research on whether or not that investment financially is the best option for your child. Also, in our experience, a lot of schools, in my experience, we have experienced this firsthand, they really need the students in there because they don't get funded through the government, and so they need that income from the tuition of the students in order to keep going. The problem with that is that they may loosen their standards or their expectations on students and let in students that shouldn't be there. Now, what I mean by that is just students who are having difficulty with behavioral issues, they're in trouble, they're rebellious, they have issues that are behavioral issues, and therefore parents want to send them to a private Christian school or a private Catholic school or whatever it is to try and straighten them out. I disagree that you send your kid to a private school to fix them. I think that you as a parent are responsible to get them whatever help they need. If it's discipline they need, you need to instill that. So I don't like the atmosphere of private schools kind of letting in kids that need help in other areas or are just discipline problem kids because they're out of control. So definitely weigh your school if you're looking for that, and be realistic about what you're going to be getting out of that school. Okay, the third option is a charter school, and that will vary depending on the state that you're in. So I've lived in 2 states and dealt with charters in 2 different arenas. The first was in California, and I must say that coming from California, they do have an excellent charter school system. For instance, we got $2,500 per child to go towards school. So you can buy curriculum that way. Our boys went to tennis lessons for free that way. They took karate, they took engineering with Legos, they took super chefs. They took all sorts of different classes that I didn't have to pay for because I got funding from the state through this charter. Now, you cannot use the funds for any kind of religious curriculum. It cannot be published by a religious publisher. So if you want something specific, for instance, a science program that is a specific religious science publisher, then you will have to pay for that. But because you're using the money for all sorts of other things like tennis lessons and all that kind of stuff, you can use your own private money to purchase that particular curriculum. For us, we met with a teacher once a month and we turned in a sample of each subject, and we had standardized testing, and that was it. That was the whole year. Otherwise, they were at home and we just did the classes that we wanted. And so I found that that was actually a pretty great setup. But we then left California and moved to Texas, where they don't have that kind of a system set up. And there are charter schools, but it's more in-class charters that your kids kind of are in a lottery for too, if you want to go to that. And it's just set up completely different. So you can homeschool for sure. You can definitely do co-ops. You can definitely sign up for classes, but the burden financially does fall to you. There are a few online systems that are free, like K-12, but you do have to have had your child at least one day in a public school before you are eligible for that program for free. Otherwise, you have to pay for it. So an at-home homeschooling charter is definitely an option. You can also do straight up homeschooling, and that's just everything on your own. You just purchase everything on your own, you do stuff with your kids, you live the life the way that you want, and you just make sure that they are on track to graduate in 12th grade, just like a normal kid would at whatever age they're finished, and you can just do your own thing. There are definitely ways like K-12 to help you with that if you need some structure built in, or if you feel confident to do it all yourself. You can pick and choose. There's tons of homeschooling events, conferences, where that can be very overwhelming, but you can find just about anything that will work for you. And that gives you tons of flexibility. You can go on field trips that you want. You can homeschool all the way year round, or you can do it all in 9 months. You can do it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I mean, whatever works for you and your family. You can travel. You can travel on off seasons. That's really amazing. You can do all sorts of stuff. It's very flexible. The cons about that is that, you definitely have a huge responsibility as the parent to be with them on a daily basis all day. You have to buy that curriculum. You have to make sure it's all done. You have to make sure they get things done within the year. You do have to make sure that all of that is done. You have to make sure they've got social interactions and sports or whatever outside of their homeschool environment. And so it is a huge responsibility, and in my opinion, the one that takes the absolute most out of you as a parent. But if you're wanting that flexibility and that time, it's amazing. So the last option is a university model school. Now that may not be available everywhere. You'll have to check around to see if there's something in your area that is like that. And usually that is 3 days in, 2 days at home, or 3 days at home and 2 days in, depending on the school. The one that we are currently doing with our boys is a university model school that's 3 days in and 2 days at home. So they do attend school Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They are home on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Monday, the teacher will send home what they're supposed to do on Tuesday, and they turn it in on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, they are sent home with what they're gonna do on Thursday, and they turn it in on Friday. I absolutely, of all the options that we have done, love the university model school system. Now, here are the pros of that. One, they're not homeschooled the whole time. They're not in school the whole time. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Two, it is less expensive than a full-time private school because they are only in there for 3 days instead of 5. It's not cheap but it is a much more affordable option if you're trying to do something that's in a private school arena, but you can't afford the full-time. 3, it's totally structured. You as the parent don't have to come up with the curriculum to do for your kids. So for me, I love the homeschooling, but I hated having to come up with all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to have to lesson plan. I didn't want to have to buy all this stuff and figure all that stuff out. I just wanted it told to me, and then I could teach it to my kids. So I love that option. They get to socialize with other kids 3 days a week. They're in a classroom setting. It's smaller. Our classes are about 15 kids per class, so they get one-on-one attention from their teacher, but they're still in with their peers, and they're still doing group projects, and they're still having recess, and they're still having lunch together, and they get that friend group and that accountability group and the peer group all wrapped into that, but then they're still home. So on the con side of that, it does cost money to do it. It's likely not very close to your home. I mean, we drive 25 minutes to school and back, but it's only 3 days a week. You are buying uniforms and books and things like that. So there's definitely a fairly significant cost involved. But I love the fact that I get some time with my boys every other day. It makes the weeks go by super fast because every day is different. All of a sudden we're at Friday. You get a few days to yourself as the parent to where you can get the other things done that you need in your life. I absolutely love this. My kids love it. And here's what I think is the best benefit of this. I have found parents who are super dedicated to being intentional and involved with their kids. They have to be because they're homeschooling 2 days out of the week. They still get their own time. There's lots of us that work from home and have careers where we do it at the same time. But they're always involved in their kids because every other day they're doing the stuff with their kids. Plus, it prepares them for university, for college, because as you know, college classes are generally not every day. There are some, but for the most part, you're either going Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or you're going Tuesday and Thursday, and you've got those days off in between. So it's training your kids to know how the university system is going to be set up. They're already going to be prepared to study on those off days, to manage their schedules and their times, to know when they can have jobs and how all that works together. They're already prepared because they're already doing it. So if you are interested in a university model school, I would highly recommend that you check out if there is one near you and see if that's an option that you might want to do with your kids. I really do think it marries the best of traditional school, private school, homeschool. It kind of marries all those together. But I hope this gives you some different ideas on weighing the options, and that there is so many more options than just, well, they have to go to public school because that's what everybody does. They don't have to do that, and your child is unique and may not fit into that mold, and they may fit into that mold, and that's amazing. So every family has to decide for themselves what is going to work for their kids, what is best for them, and I hope this has inspired you to weigh those options, consider the options, and really think about what is the best environment for your kids to be in, and be willing to make the sacrifices to get that done. Please leave me a comment if you have questions on any one of these types of scenarios and how we viewed it. I'm not an expert on them, but I definitely have had experience with all of them. So I can hopefully answer some questions for you if you have them. Leave those in the comments. Be sure and give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative or helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you're having a great day. Stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next video. See you, ladies.